Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Most Important Conversations daily meditation. We conduct and host these meditations throughout the week, Monday through Friday. We have different meditations that we provide on different days, but we always start with a talk focused on the macro theme of liberation and becoming the powerful creator of your own life. These talks are derived from one of our core programs at the Most Important Conversations. That program is called Whole Life Architecture, which is a container in which people are activating the creator within to become the creator of their own life. And we derive our meditation talks from there so that we can provide an offering to you of something that you can take away and apply directly into your own life. But if you'd like more information about whole life architecture, you can go to tmicglobal.com. This week, we have been speaking inside of the macro theme of liberation. And we've been talking specifically this week about language and about the role that language plays as a tool for creating what's possible, or even just for creating what already is in your life without realizing it. Most of us are not aware that we are always already creating everything in our life. Everything in our life has been an act of our own creation. It may not have been an act of our intention. It may have not been intentional. In fact, in many cases, what gets created and what we create in our life is unintentional. It is unconscious. And one of the ways that we create is in how we speak, which is a reflection of what we believe, and what we believe determines what we perceive out in the outer world. And all of these things are interacting with each other and create the conditions inside of which we create our life. For most of us, I think you'll agree that our life hasn't turned out as it was promised to us, or at least the way we understood it to be promised. Meaning, it wasn't a straight, easy path where everything clicked into place. Certain things that you may have believed were going to occur haven't occurred, or if they have, they haven't occurred in the way you thought that they would. And this leaves us with a state of being upset. For many, it leaves us in a state where we may even feel powerless to do anything about it. But the reality is, life will never turn out as we expect it to. Our expectations are just a story. It's a story that our mind has created or that someone has told us and then we've added on to. There's a certain isness of life that we need to get really comfortable with. Most of us are trying to perpetually assuage ourselves or distract ourselves or escape from being disappointed, from being uncomfortable. We hide inside of the stories of our conditioning like a warm blanket, and we are fearful without realizing it or without wanting to admit that fear is the source. But we are fearful of the isness of our life. Those mundane, everyday things that we seem to barely be able to tolerate. The things that are occurring in our life that are occurring outside of our beliefs and expectations of how life was supposed to go. This is the isness of life. You can say, well, my life wasn't supposed to look this way, or that wasn't supposed to happen, or this should have happened faster or differently. But all of this rumination about how you had hoped life was going to go is quite irrelevant to the fact that there's a certain isness to what is happening, regardless of hope, which is why in whole life architecture, we teach the power of actually being hopeless, which I know sounds weird from our conditioning. But the thing about hope is it becomes a trap because you're no longer in the present moment. When you are in hope, you are in the future. And our mind being so powerful, we know from neuroscience that our brain cannot tell the difference between so-called reality and our imagination or a simulation, because our imagination is just a simulation. So when we're in hope, we are imagining, we are simulating a future that is not in the isness of this moment. And so because our brain can't tell the difference, we can drift there in almost a dream state, a fantasy, disconnected from the isness of what's right in front of us and what needs to be handled. And if it were handled, we would be closer to attaining that hopeful dream state than we are when we just sit in the hopeful dream state and effectively are in escape of the isness of our present life. And then we have this upset. And this upset that we experience is who we are as a being. And we bring that upset to all of our other experiences and situations in life. So we are upset about the isness of life not matching the story of our imagination and our fantasy, our hope. And then we take that upset and it becomes the ingredients that we start to view the rest of our life through as a lens. And so we show up to all of the other parts of our life, that the isness other parts of our life, from a place of upset or discouragement or fear or frustration or stress or anxious, any of these ways that we can be when we are not present to and embracing the isness of each present moment. Any of these ways that we can be become a new way of operating. We become anxious and we show up as anxiety in all situations. You've met people who show up at a party or in a work environment or whatever, and there's just always something. They're finding what there is to be anxious in the isness of that moment, while other people may not be experiencing that or see that. So it's evidentiary of how what we believe we perceive. If you are trapped in a belief that the world is an anxious place and you arrived at that conclusion because what you hoped would happen didn't, or didn't in the way that it should have according to your story, now your ability to predict the future, which none of us can do anyway, but you believed you could, that's why you were stuck in hope. Now your ability that you thought you had to predict the future is called into question. And that sense of security and predictability that our brains naturally want to feel safe and secure has vanished, leaving you in a state of anxiety. And then you go about and you show up as anxiety in every circumstance and situation, and it becomes the perceptual filter or lens through which you experience that moment. If you're anxious, it's because you're showing up as anxiety. If you're fearful, it's because you're showing up to that moment as fear. Or any other state that you may find yourself in. We become the states through which we see the world. And then we recursively re-experience that state in every situation. But there is a way out of this. Things don't make you anxious. Things don't make you fearful. Even that is a creation. Because what makes you anxious, someone standing right next to you experiencing the same thing may not be anxious at all. Because they have a different worldview. They have a different perceptual filter. So we have enormous amounts of creative control over our state. We may think our mood is how we feel and that it's a product of our circumstances, but it's really not. It's our very being. We show up as anxiety, or we show up as fear, or we show up as I like this, or we show up as I don't like this. This is the experience, the perceptual experience we bring to an otherwise meaningless situation or object in our life. And if you amplify or multiply that out hundreds or thousands of times over a day, you can quite simply start to see how your life is a construct of your own creation, of your own imagination, of your own hopes and dreams that you've bought into. I'm not saying don't have aspirations that become sort of a soft target for what you're working on and working towards. I'm saying don't get psychically and emotionally invested in it. Be in the present moment, because creation only happens when we deal with the present and the isness of what's right in front of us. This is why in whole life architecture, we teach don't set goals. Have a preference. And you might say, well, those are just semantics. Those are effectively the same thing. Well, they're really not. I can prefer something, but that doesn't mean it has to go that way. It doesn't mean I'm attached to it, that I'm obsessed with it happening that way. Whereas a goal is far more finite. It's far more defined. I have a lot more emotional and psychic energy invested in it. And when we invest that much emotional and psychic energy into something in the future, a future around which we do not control the variables of the external world of effects. We don't control the other people we don't even know exist that will likely show up and cause our best laid plans to go sideways. We don't control global affairs, the weather. So to have a goal, and in our imagination, it looks like this seamless, easy path to get to it, we're setting ourselves up. See, the problem is we're too much in our head and not enough in our body, in the experience of the phenomenal world, of the isness of what's happening right now. What we think starts to become in the way. It's, Descartes' thing, I think, therefore I am. So who you are is how you think. And that gets in the way of being with the isness of life in this moment. It gets in the way of our power as creators, creating what's possible instead of merely consuming life according to our already existing thinking, our already existing perceptual filter. And the conundrum we find ourselves in perpetually is that we show up as a certain way with a certain, driven by a certain underlying belief system, driven by a perceptual filter affected by our belief system. We bring that to how we engage with life, and then we mistake or conflate how we are with how life is. The analogy I think of is the Charlie Brown character, Pigpen, who, if you recall, was always showing up wherever he went with a cloud of dust, a dust storm all around him. And wherever he went, he experienced dust storm. And he confuses that the world is a dust storm when it's really just him walking around with this dust storm all around him. That's what our emotional perception, our belief systems, our conditioning is. It's the dust storm we're walking around with and viewing life through that and believing that is life. Or if you have a dream or a fantasy you've imagined, if you're trapped in hope, you're walking around seeing the world through that lens. And then, as the famous quote from Mike Tyson, everyone has a strategy until you get punched in the face. Eventually, the isness of life punctures the dust storm of our perception and brings us back into the present moment. And then how much time has been lost? How many choices have been made, or even decisions where we decisively cut off possibility because we're so certain that the goal that we have, the hope that we're attached to, is what our future will look like. And then when we're snapped back into the isness of reality, where does that leave you? That leaves you in a state of depression, moroseness, hopelessness. But the kind of hopelessness that's not coming from a place of power, the hopelessness where you've just realized the hope you've been putting all your energy, your psychic energy and emotional energy into was just a concoction or creation of your own imagination. Now, again, I'm not belittling the power of the imagination. We teach in whole life architecture how to use it as a powerful tool to create your life. But the challenge is we get lost in that hope. We get lost in our imagination. And that's where the problem starts, which is why it's better to be hopeless, but not in the sense of demoralized and nothing will ever work, from a place of power, that I know I am a powerful creator in the isness of this moment. And I can address this moment as a powerful creator, and I may have a preference for what my life will look like in a year or 5 years, and I am diligently working towards what I am creating, but I'm in this paradoxical middle ground, this middle space of dealing with the isness of what's in front of me and having a preference that I'm working towards without attachment, without hope, without fantasy. And I'll end by just saying that language plays an important role in this, as we've been talking about that all week. How we speak about ourselves, how we speak about our life, recursively reinforces our inner state. It reinforces and activates our emotional states. How we speak to ourselves and speak to others about ourselves and about the world is a powerful co-creative determinative effect on what our experience is. It's why Immanuel Kant said, to speak as though every word uttered from your mouth would become universal law. Our words and our speech are a very powerful tool that determines what gets created in our life. And if we're speaking only in a future space and ignoring the isness of this moment, we are setting ourselves up. You know, there's nothing personal about the experiences that we have in our life. We get offended and demoralized and upset when they don't go our way, but that's because we're attached. That's because we're hopeful. But those experiences just are. We're the one with the story. We're the one who's created the conditions for our upset, for our stress, for our anxiety. And language is one of the ways that we create that conundrum. So as we move into our meditation this morning, I'd invite you all to consider many of the elements that I brought up this morning, and in particular, how you're using language as a creative tool without realizing it to create the conditions of your own anxiety and upset, because it's through language we tell stories about how something's supposed to go, and we get attached to that, and now we're in a trap of our own making. I'd like to invite Mignon now to join us to guide us in our neural sculpting meditation for the day.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much, Chad. And in this morning's neural sculpting meditation, we'll create space on an open canvas where your desired and natural beliefs take shape, infused with your intentional creativity. You may hear me spell out words or dial things up or down along with fun imagery. All are cues by design as part of the neural sculpting meditation process. And this process helps calm the nervous system, prime the brain for creating supportive ideas, and gives you agency in how you move through life. So let's start on this meditation journey. And to begin, I invite you to orient to the space around you in this moment, to notice the structure beneath you, supporting your body. And that might be the sofa, a cushion, the ground, or anywhere that you are comfortable. In orienting to the space around you, including what's in front of you, that might be a wall across the room, it might be something else. And maybe what's above or even behind. And as you are getting acquainted with your body in this space of this location, you can just let your mind go wherever it needs to go, because your breath is keeping you right here. And you might notice the rhythm of your breath as you inhale and exhale naturally. As you are noticing the flow of your breathing, where do you notice it most? Maybe it's the movement in through your nose, or you might notice it in the throat. Or you may notice the belly and the lungs rise on the inhale and release on the exhale. Maybe you imagine that your breath can smooth itself out, expanding your body on the inhale and relaxing on the exhale as it empties effortlessly. You might choose to follow the next exhale, imagining it to disperse out of your nose and mouth, filling up the room around you. This is your breath breathing in and out, consistent, comfortable, supportive. Your deepening breath can invite the body to let go of any gripping or tension in the muscles, finding their way to relaxation and comfort. You might want to drop your shoulders or give your neck a gentle stretch. Maybe roll out your wrists and ankles. In this one and only moment, your body has comfort available to it. Comfort of your breath, maybe comfort of the temperature in the room, maybe comfort of the cushion or chair supporting you. What is adding to your comfort at this moment? And as all of this keeps supporting you from moment to moment, you are reminded that your creative mind can go wherever you'd like it to go. It might be interesting to imagine stepping outside and everything being monochromatic blue, different hues of blue, but all blue. The sky, the sun, trees, even the birds. How wild would that be? Or maybe it's more interesting still to imagine that words had a taste. Maybe the word orange tastes like an orange. I wonder what the word fabulous would taste like to you. And with your creative mind able to go where it wants to while your body remains comfortable in breathing, you might find extra comfort knowing that you are the author of this meditation, a meditation to explore the unknown, a future space and time where you can just create. And if you can bring your awareness to an area in your life where you are uncertain, perhaps the answers are not clear, maybe there's a problem to be solved or dreams to be realized. What is it? And because your creative mind is able, you get to create a narrative of this future story, giving it the space to consider, permission to have the possibility. So, in this space, what does your mind imagine spontaneously? Perhaps there's an opportunity to create something like CLARITY, clarity, or innovation, or transformation. Perhaps it is something else for you. So if you are imagining maybe the possibility of going on the journey or adventure of your wildest dreams, or perhaps you create the space to accomplish a lifelong dream of completing a project near and dear to your heart. And because this is your story and your creative mind can go anywhere it wants while your breath is breathing and your body is supported, what do you imagine if you give yourself permission to create the intention for these possibilities? Because your breath is breathing itself and your creative mind is awakened, maybe you imagine in your mind's eye a color or colors representing this idea or possibility. Could be warm sunset hues of orange or cool colors like blue. Perhaps there are textures, soft and smooth, or maybe bubbly, or it could be something else. What does your creative mind notice? And you could imagine sounds with this, the sounds of the coast or forest or of applause. Maybe a favorite tune is playing. And if you hear a sound, what if you could turn the level of the sound or vibration to the perfect level between 1 and 10? What would it be? If level 10 is like thunder and 1 is a quiet hush. And now, what would it be like to take this color, sound, vibrations, textures, and put it in your body if it's not already there? Where would you put it? Maybe in your hands, in your heart, or your head? And what things do you notice when you place and merge with this possibility? Maybe a warmth that spreads or a depth that anchors. How might your mind imagine it? Does your being experience a pulse that moves through your body? Is there a brightness to your inner landscape? Or is there something different for you? And your body listens to your narrative, just as your body is listening to the way you relate to this possibility and the tones and colors. You might even notice sensation. Where is your body most responsive to this experience? What do you notice? Maybe that's a smile on your face or a flutter in your heart or something altogether different. This is how your body is relating and associating, and you get to remember that, marking it in your body's memory with a simple hand gesture or placement of your non dominant hand anywhere that feels right. And each and every breath can integrate this experience more and more until it becomes familiar and widespread inside of you. Integrate it as a possibility. And as you embrace this, there might be a word that can also activate this experience for you. A word that you can say or write or hear or read that will remind you of the possibility. What's your word? I invite you to imagine your word written across the sky in your favorite color. And because your body listens so well to your mind, your body may remember this possibility each time you say your word or make your hand gesture. And just as your breath breathes itself, even when you're not noticing it, so too this vibration and experience can expand even when you're not noticing it. And you're invited to continue to explore this intentional possibility as it becomes more and more real in your inner landscape. Embrace it and be well.
And welcome back, everybody. Reconnecting to the world without from the world within. And as you go out into the of the world experience and you're in it but not of it, consider how much your language either wants to pull you into the of the world category, how much your language sets you up to not be in the moment you're in, dealing with the isness of life, how much it influences your imagination and dropping into a state of hope around how something is supposed to go, and how disempowering that leaves you when you are faced with the reality of what is. Better to powerfully be a creator in the present moment than to be lost in a future around which you do not control the variables. And again, that doesn't mean not have a preference and a direction you're headed, but being able to stay emotionally sober and not let the experience take you over, the experience of a future you're drifting into hope around. It is a difficult path because we have to have one foot in both places and straddle that very narrow line. But it is the most powerful place to be because you're never surprised by the isness of the moment, and you are still creating what's possible for you in your life. It's a very powerful state of mind, emotion, spirit, and being to center yourself in. Wishing you all a wonderful day, and we will continue our work next week. Also, have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you then.